Every effort of the leaders was concentrated on the festival of the advent of Caodaism. This took place on the 14th, 15th, and 16th of the 10th month of the year Binh Dhan, November 18th, 19th, 20th, 1926, in the pagoda Tu Lam Tu, situated at Go Den, Tainan. The Governor-General of Indochina, as well as the Governor of Cochin China, and high-placed European and native officials were invited. Celebrated with solemnity, this festival gathered a considerable number of believers from all the provinces of Cochin China. It also attracted thousands of curious come simply to observe. The presence of Captain Monet, a great French spiritualist, was also noted there. It was during this festival the Caodaist sacerdocy was instituted, and the new religious code was established and promulgated. Definite C of Caodaism. The Tu Lam Tu was a Buddhist pagoda newly built by the Hua Tung Gai Hai of Chao Gao, Cholan, who had allotted it to the new religion to which he had been converted. But after the festival, the Buddhist faithful who had furnished funds for the erection of this temple, who had not been consulted on its transfer, demanded its return. On the other hand, experience had shown that the pagoda was too small, and that the land on which it was built was too exiguous to enable them fitly to install the holy see of the incipient new religion, which promised so great a future. On indications of a superior spirit, the land on which the temporary temple is actually placed was then chosen and brought to locate the Caodaist Holy See. Situated at the village of Long Tan, province of Tainan, it is large enough, about 100 hectares, to meet with actual and future needs. The transfer of the Godan Temple at Long Tan took place on March 1927. The number of adherents continued to increase considerably. The movement of pilgrims to the new temporary temple is worthy of notice. It was by thousands that they were received there daily. As any other religion at the beginning, Caodaism had also its adversaries, whose criticism, often too passionate, was not always dictated by a sufficiently objective spirit. However, the Caodaist leaders, obeying the instructions of the great master, endeavored to maintain and improve themselves in the great way, only considering the moral and spiritual good of humanity. It is the only answer which they are allowed against attacks of which they are the object, for every Caodaist keeps his temper. At last, after 4 years of existence, Caodaism counted 500,000 adherents, and in spite of multiple obstacles sowed in its way, it always continued its triumphant walk towards the goal that God assigned to it, the regeneration of humanity in universal peace. Sources of the doctrine of Caodaism. Land Illustré gives an abridgment of it as follows. Cao Đài is a symbolic name of the Supreme Being, who, for the third time, is to be revealed in the Orient. The opinion of the adherents of the new faith is that God, adapting his teaching to the progress of the human spirit, which is more refined than formerly, should this time be manifested by means of mediums. He be unwilling to grant any mortal the privilege of founding Caodaism. This new manifestation of the Supreme Being arose from the fact that all religions submitted to the authority of a human founder is opposed to universality, since its prophets rise up against truths proclaimed by other religions towards which they show an obvious intolerance. The Caodaist doctrine is a fusion of the oldest religions of the Orient, Buddhism, Taoism, and Confucianism. In a message transmitted on the 13th of January 1927, in the presence of several Frenchmen, LİCH, one of God's ministers, made clear this doctrine. We take from it the following lines. The holy doctrines of the various religions are ill-practiced. The order and peace of the days of yore is effaced. the moral law of humanity is betrayed. For unthinking and skeptical persons, God exists in name only. They ignore the fact that in His supreme place reigns a personage, sovereign master of all events of the universe and all human destinies. Formerly, the peoples of the world did not know each other and lacked means of transportation. I then founded, at different epochs, 5 branches of the Great Way, Dید N.ĐዔO. Number 1, NHiN, Confucianism. Number 2, Thanh DAO, Kung Tai Kong, worships of Janai. Number 3, Thanh DAO, Christianity. Number 4, Tien DAO, Taoism. Number 5, Phat DAO, Buddhism. Each based on the usages and customs of the races particularly called to practice them. Nowadays, all parts of the world are explored. Humanity, knowing itself better, aspires to real peace. But because of the very multiplicity of these religions, men do not always live in harmony. That's why I decided to unite all in one to bring them back to primitive unity. What is more, the holy doctrines of these religions have been, through the centuries, denatured by the very persons charged with spreading them to such a point that I have now taken the firm resolution to come to you myself to show the true way. In that same spiritualistic message of the 13th of January, 1927, LİCH also said, "Dear brethren, the merciful Christ came among you to mark out for you the good way. Try to follow it in order to have peace of soul. Go forward each day with alert step in the love of God. Unite in love one with another. Help one another. This is law divine." At that moment, when each is condemned to undergo his purgatory, if he think of his own interests, if he seek to sow misery and suffering, he will risk to be drawn into the infernal torment where the wicked goes to crush his life and soil his soul. Indeed, Caodaism, or Dید N.ĐዔO, is the most simplified religion that exists at present, so far as the practices of its worship are concerned. It merely asks its adherents to address daily prayers to Cao Đài, either at home or in appointed places. No confession, spiritualistic evocations, being delicate and dangerous to handle, are reserved to the sacerdocy, nor communication. The number of priests reduced to strict necessity for preaching from time to time the holy doctrine. Exhort the faithful to practice the virtue of humanity, such as Confucius conceived. If it exists but one God, the Supreme Being, it recommends to its members to follow pure Christian morals, or that of Confucius, which actually do not greatly differ. It recommends the veneration of the superior spirits, who were benefactors of humanity at different epochs. Christ, as well as Buddha Gautama, Confucius, and different genii of the Chinese antiquity, are not forgotten in prayers. Dignitaries of Caodaism, on principle, are forbidden evocations of spirits before the masses of the faithful, in order to avoid becoming professional and abusing the credulity of the mystic crowds. The billed basket is veiled in the temples, but inspired mediums continue to be heard by the faithful. It would seem then, in my opinion, unjust to declare too quickly that the founders of the Caodaist religion put their light under a bushel and reserve to themselves the monopoly of contact with the invisible. It is sufficient for him who practices the religion that he may rise to acquire the right to a more complete initiation. In some respects, it is the attitude of the Catholic Church towards Spiritism. Fundamental Principles confirmed in 1946. The Caodaist doctrine tends not only to conciliate all the religious convictions, but also to adapt itself to all degrees of spiritual evolution. 1. From a moral point of view, it reminds man of his duties towards himself, his family, society, that is a broadened family, then toward humanity, the universal family. 2. From a philosophical point of view, it preaches the despising of honors, riches, luxury, in a word, the emancipation from servitudes of matter, to seek in spirituality the full quietude of the soul. 3. From the point of view of worship, it recommends the adoration of God, the Father of all, and the veneration of superior spirits that constitute the occult august hierarchy. Admitting the national worship of ancestors, it prohibits, however, meat offerings as well as the use of votive paper. 4. From a spiritualistic point of view, it confirms, in harmony with other religions and systems of spiritualistic and psychic philosophy, the existence of the soul, its survival of the physical body, its evolution by successive reincarnations, the posthumous consequences of human actions ruled by the law of karma. 5. From the initiate's point of view, it communicates to those of the adherents who are worthy revealed teachings that shall enable them, by a process of spiritual evolution, to accede to ecstasies of felicity. Adherents. There are of 3 kinds. 1. Religious. High dignitaries who are constrained to lead the life, if not of an ascetic, at least entailing certain privations. The works of the flesh are forbidden to them. They keep their wives, but they are to them no more than sisters. Alcohol, meat, fish are forbidden to them. They partake exclusively of vegetables. They are authorized to commune with God and the superior spirits, but only occasionally. 2. Mediums. To the number of 12, who are somewhat auxiliary and are not actually monks, but are yet compelled to certain rules, certain privations in their material life. They continue to take care of their daily occupations, in commerce or industry. They are formally forbidden to practice spiritism, save in the presence of the dignitaries, and with their invitation after having recited prayers to the Most High. 3. Ordinary members. The mass of believers, whose duties are only to follow the morals and rules of behavior indicated by the directing committee of Caodaism, and especially to prostrate themselves every day before the altar of Cao Đài, either in a special pagoda or in a newly created meeting place, or at home before the altar which certain have erected, on the throne of which is found the drawing of an eye surrounded with clouds, before ritual candlesticks, a perfume burner full of ash, in which joss sticks are burned, and offerings such as fruits in more or less abundance. According to another more recent document, I find the members divided into 2 categories: the Dฐ์, superior degree, and the NHhiN, inferior degree. In the first degree, they are all the real monks. They may be dignitaries or simple adherents. With that title, they are compelled to grow a beard and long hair, to follow a diet of exclusively vegetable food, to abstain from luxury and sexual intercourse. Their life, freed from servitudes of matter, is entirely devoted to the service of religion. The second degree comprises the mass of the believers who continue to look after their normal occupations. Their religious duty consists in daily practicing the worship and observing the rules of conduct prescribed by the new religious code. These, as well as the others, are forced to Gao Kam, the Panchashila, interdictions drawn from the Buddhist morals, commanding not to kill, to avoid cupidity, luxury, gaiety, and sin in words. Concerning the diet that the members of the second degree must follow, a gradual vegetarianism is prescribed to them, consisting in abstaining from meat a fixed number of days per month. So they begin with the sakvong, temporary diet of 2 days, then successively pass to LịCH, diet of 6 days, and to taptrai, diet of 10 days. The Caodaism admits to its fold all men of goodwill, without distinction of race or social rank. There the simple Dai fraternally rubs elbows with the Dak Fu Su. Caodaist worship. This is practiced every day in places of meeting as in private homes, in 4 hours, 6 a.m., noon, 6 p.m., and midnight. Prostrated before the divine altar in the leap of the soul toward the Supreme Being, we begin by fulfilling the rite of the offering of incense. Then comes that of the offering of prayers, the form of which may be translated as follows. Above the ocean of human pain in which immensity is lost between sky and sea, already the day star points to the east. LαϊκH, the great teacher, had the merit of aiding our human salvation. The 3 religions teach as base of their doctrine the practice of good and of virtue. Confucius the sage has clearly traced the path of the middle way. Buddha the merciful preached devotion and charity. The Taoist doctrine ordained the worship of truth and character discipline. 'Tis thus that one trunk gave birth to 3 similar branches. Let him who can penetrate truth so profound purify his heart for the recital of holy prayers. These formalities ended, we atone in chorus a hymn to the glory of God, then 3 in honor of the Holy 3, Confucius, LαϊκH, and Buddha. Such is, in all its simplicity, the daily worship rite. As for the divine services celebrated in the temples on great ceremonial days, we shall observe a more elaborate ritual. How to pray to Cao Đài. I ask of you, my brethren, to pray and sing the praises of him who gives life, strength, beauty, and what is still better, wisdom that makes you like unto him. I ask of you, my brethren, to sing, pray, and put yourselves in order. Position of order standing in the station of motionless waiting. I ask you to await the benefactions of the Spirit. Position of order standing in the gesture of the first step toward the light. I ask you to walk toward the light. Position of order seated in waiting in inner meditation. I ask you to meditate, pray, and wait. I ask you, my brethren, to pray, inwardly singing the praises of him who gives life. The life of the body to run to the help for those who have need of you. The life of the heart to love all men, all beings, to love all life, all divine life, angelic, human, animal, vegetable, mineral, and atomic life. I ask you to love earth, water, fire, air, the pebbles of the road, and the stars of the heavens. Position of order in repose, that of rest which must be an action of grace. Immobility is an order, a position of action, a prayer, a song toward him who gives life, strength, beauty, and what is more, wisdom. My brethren, my sisters, I ask you to pray and sing the praises of him who gives life. I bring flowers of 5 colors. I bring flowers. The white lily of innocence, candid, united with God. As all colors are found in the white of the faith, so all beliefs are of one. The blue of the fields of heavenly hope, the blue of the heavens which induces the upward look. In divine hope are all human ideals. The red rose of bleeding love, of love crucified, the red rose of charity. The rose that carries the cross that carries the rose. Rose, cross. The yellow sunflower, the gold sunflower, the sunflower of silent speech. The gold of heaven falls on the earth. The mauve flower, the violet of secret humilities, the violet made of red love and blue hope, the violet of mourning, but also of secret power, the mauve color of him who knows truth. Universal love. Those simple words might sum up the essential tendency of Caodaism. The practical applications that come from it concern 1. Human brotherhood, 2. Kindness toward animals. For we are entrusted with duties of fraternity toward men who are our brothers in the universal family. We also have duties of goodness toward animals who also are our brethren behind us in the way of evolution. We must then take care of those destined to our service, treat them with gentleness, and avoid making them suffer needlessly. All animal life must be respected as much as possible, for in harming it we delay the evolution of the victim. So all Caodaists, conscious of their duties, will submit to a vegetarian diet, to avoid being party to multiple crimes daily committed to the prejudice of his inferior brethren. Between pity toward beasts and kindness of soul, said Schopenhauer, there is a close link, we may say without hesitation, that when an individual is cruel toward beasts, he will not be a just man. 3. Goodness towards plants. Nobody is ignorant of the services rendered us by all kinds of trees. Silent benefactors of man, not blaming either his ungratefulness or his cruelty, they shelter with their shade all who come and sit at their feet, a tired traveler as well as a wicked wood pharmacy cutter. The sandalwood, it is said, perfumes the axe that strikes it. Plants constitute a true natural pharmacy, from whence is drawn all proper panacea to heal every disease. How many lessons of goodness and sacrifice can we draw from it for our profit? The recent scientific experiments of Sir Bose, a scholar of India, have shown that plants live much like man, that some, particularly sensitive ones, possess a nervous system more sensitive than ours to physical impressions. What think we, then, of him who amuses himself by chopping a branch from a tree or uprooting a plant? If the necessities of material life oblige us to use vegetables, the goodness we owe these candidates for animality recommends us never to mutilate nor needlessly destroy them. 4. Service to one's neighbor. That completes the duty of the human fraternity. What sweetness, what charm, nature in its solitude, offers him who lives the quiet, secluded life. Apart from the world whose temptations attract him no more in the quietness of his seclusion, he purifies his life, calms his passions, and raises his thoughts towards the Supreme Being. Then, in the rapture of contemplation, where is revealed the feeling of divinity, he feels at last his heavenly origin. Such is the inner life led by superior men endowed with great faculties when, their terrestrial mission fulfilled, they aspire to spiritual well-being. But before reaching that high stage of human pilgrimage, the traveler of the long road, while seeking to progress, must help those who feel their way behind him. So the Caodaist, anxious to act according to his principles of humanity, must, in every circumstance, devote himself to the service of his neighbor. Impelled by a desire to help his fellow men, he holds himself in readiness to bring, either by his words or by his acts, a balm to moral and social miseries. And in his aspiration toward merciful love, he always holds out the same helpful hand to those who stand in need. Bearing all affronts from whatever source, he remains without hatred among them who hate him, ever faithful to the great way. Dignitary or simple believer, he must impose upon himself the difficult task of working for souls, to instill into them the teachings of Cao Đài, based on the love of good and the worship of truth. If by dint of proclaiming truth he does not succeed in convincing unbelievers, at least he will shake them a little. Until doubt subsided in their souls, time will accomplish the rest. It is in setting himself to the help and salvation of others that he works for his own, for the acts of love and charity, by a just return, constitute his only viaticum in his wanderings towards supreme happiness. Since the service of one's neighbor is one of the indispensable conditions of his own salvation, it is in his interest to apply himself to it with as much zeal as his religious earnestness and his moral advancement enable him. Without pretending to place himself as a preacher, he must, however, particularly incite his co-religionists to the practice of good and virtue. He can reach it not by vain speeches, but by practicing what he preaches and conforming his life to the doctrine he professes. If at times he fails in that task by slipping from the way that was traced for him by the great Master, it is but just that we blame his weakness or his backsliding, and not the teachings which he is charged to spread, which constitute, may we repeat, an ideal of peace by fraternal love. There may be, in Caodaism as well as in all other existing religions, hypocrites and believers whose faith is not strong enough to resist the temptations of the spirit of evil. These are the unhealthy elements that dishonor the religion to which they belong, and of which the body must be purged. What Caodaism brings. Caodaism comes to unveil truth and conform to the goal of the creation of man. Caodaism gives to its followers a consciousness of his power when the spirit is united with the spirit. Cao Đài comes toward man hindered in his walk toward the light and shows him that human reason will triumph over all obstacles, all misunderstandings. Cao Đài delivers from hindrances. Caodaism is then in harmony with the free man who freely believes that the human spirit will one day be conscious of his own power. But Cao Đài guards the free man from the spirit of pride, for he says that all inner light comes from the superior light. Light comes only from light. The light here below proceeds from the light above. Human light proceeds from divine light. Predestination of Caodaism. Caodaism is predestined to become not only in the Far East but in all the universe, a synthesis of religions, a super-theosophy freed from artificial theosophy. Caodaism does not seek for religious transcendence, but hopes for and tends toward a harmony of beliefs and philosophies. None of its principles may be refused by any, even somewhat advanced mind. As in all epochs, there was a way open toward the light from above, just as in every place is found erected a mystic or material temple, to invite the blessing of the cause of causes, and to try to elevate microcosmic man toward the macrocosmic all. Religions everywhere, in all times, the living religions of today, Hinduism, Buddhism, Judaism, Christianity, and Islamism, are adapted and adapt one another to the time and place of their formation and development. It is aquatic environment that gives a fish its form. It is the attraction of heaven that makes man walk erect. Caodaism, born in Indochina, is destined for the universe, since the message it brings is found already in all religion. The multiplicity of religions is not an obstacle to harmony, if a subtle but real bond forms a point of contact for them. That link Caodaism brings to him who will listen without prejudice, with all sincerity, fraternity, to its message, life, love, truth. Caodaism, religion, and philosophy. Caodaism is a valuable religion that unites its members one with another, that unites the incarnate of this time in all places with the disincarnate of the past, and that prepares for future reincarnations. Caodaism makes its own the Comtist formula. The dead necessarily and more govern the living, but for it the dead are really and always living. The Caodaist doctrine is a valuable philosophy that is set forth, demonstrated, discussed, and affirmed with sincerity, with rationalism as well as mysticism. Rationalism is not necessarily a systematic atheism. There is only one God. What is his name? There is only one God, first cause, principle of all that exists. There is one God worshipped, venerated, prayed to under diverse names at every point of the globe. There is only one God. Cao Đài, such is the name that the one and total God has taken to manifest himself in Vietnam, and to indicate to the world the new religion in which men are certain to find him. Cao Đài, such is the name of the unique God who is in all the present and past names man gave to God, or under which God manifested himself to man. Cao Đài, such is the name. Cao Đài. Cao Đài is the most high palace. It is the manifestation of Ensaf and Kether. Cao Đài is a roofless tower on the platform of which is written, He that man cannot name, by any human words. Ensaf of the Kabbalists, Ayad, Hey, Van, Hey of the Israelites. Cao Đài serves as the name of God. It is one of numerous names of the one God, whose name can only be one of the aspects, while the being is infinite. By the triple sign, the TRIum God is always shown on the summits. God is higher than any summit, broader than any space, more enduring than all time. Tam. Let us worship 3 times God one in Cao Đài. Key. God is eternal in all time and at all time. The present moment is always His time, the epoch of God. Cao Đài manifests himself in the 3 periods of the past, present, and future. Pho. Sacrifice, fast, anticipation, prefiguration of that which is to come, of that which is to come. The fast is an expectation of celestial food, the divine word. All holy men and wise feed on the word. Thus the sage, as the monk, expects through fasting and abstinence from what is terrestrial to feed on what is celestial. In the fast thou shalt find Cao Đài. Do. Thus cometh deliverance, as shall come the resurrection. Thus cometh judgment and pardon. So is manifested Cao Đài to pardon and to love. Tam Ki Pho Do, Kwanam Bo Tat. Secret femininity of a mysterious goddess who gives strength to God. God is one, and the goddess contains Him. She is one, and all God is manifested in her. Kwanam Bo Tat. Secret divinity, tabernacle of God, and God thyself in thy feminine expression. Kwanam Bo Tat manifests herself in Cao Đài as Mary at Golgotha. Golgotha, bald mount, roofless tower. On the heights God is manifested. 5 interdictions. 1. Not to kill living beings, because of the spark of life, the center of consciousness that is in them. Not to covet, in order to avoid the fall into materialism through the needs of possession and domination. Such is the case of existing society, in which everything seems bound to stir up pride and the craving for riches. Not to practice high living. Don't eat the bodies of beasts, vegetarianism. Don't drink alcohol, because of its noxious effects on the physical body and the spirit. Noxious effects of alcohol on the perspirit. The perspirit in we interpenetrates the physical body and envelops it in its fluids. Its vital center is in the brain, and its astral center on the fontanelle. It is on the latter center that the spiritual protector remains posted to watch over the ego of an ascet till the day when he reaches complete initiation. Now, the exciting effect of alcohol, which spreads to the brain, congesting it, provoking troubles in the perspirit, troubles which, to the great prejudice of the aesthetic life, destroy the mystic harmony that is established in the believer. Moreover, during those perspiritual afflictions, he leaves the door open, the astral center, to perverse spirits who, taking possession of his body and exercising their control over him, impel him to reprehensible acts that may lead him to perdition. Therefore, our great Master has expressly forbidden us to drink alcohol. 4. Not to be tempted by luxury, which attracts a cruel karma. 5. Not to sin by word. Revelation teaches us that God appoints a guardian angel to the care of each human life. That spirit, with a rigid impartiality, is, by virtue of his mission, ceaselessly in relation with the perfect beings of superior hierarchies, to render, before the council of lords of karma, an account as full as possible of all our good or ill deeds. Therefore, the account of all human acts, constituted in merits and demerits, is unavoidably settled by the great karmic law. Further, the spirit appointed to our care also has a mission to teach us from his inspirations. Men, in their poor and insufficient language, call him conscience. Now, before we seek to deceive others by our lies, we must already have deceived our conscience, that is to say, our guardian angel. He records not only all our actions, but also our words, though they be not yet expressed in acts. For to the eyes of the lords of karma, the sins of the tongue as sins are as punishable as those arising from an overt fact. So must we observe the greatest circumspection in our speech as in our acts. Creation of the world. The creation of the world is always real, and this religious truth is propagated from century to century according to the times, in harmony or against opposition. The creation of the human spirit is always actual, and its elevation is constant. He who does not evolve inviolates and falls again into matter. The spirit is materialized, incarnate to live among us, but returns to the spirit, training and purifying us by him. Many messengers of the spirit have come: Krishna, Shakyamuni, Confucius. Elsewhere, Hermes and Pythagoras, Socrates and Plato. All the messengers have had their disciples, the Essenes, the Gnostics, the Templars, the Rosicrucians, and a great many others in the Occident and in the Orient, nowadays in the Far East, the Caodaists. French spiritualistic messages. Those who are received most frequently by the Caodaist mediums emanate, it is said, from Allan Kardec, Leon Denis, Camille Flammarion, Descartes, Joan of Arc, Chateaubriand, etc., and especially Victor Hugo and the Hugo family. Several leaders of Caodaism, the Vietnamese pretend, are but the reincarnation of several Hugos. Several curious facts that seem to make it believable. In certain temples is placed the portrait of Victor Hugo. Reincarnation in Caodaism. Being connected with Buddhism, Taoism, Confucianism, and I think I may affirm without fear or successful contradiction, with Caodaism, Allan Kardec being considered as a religious genius. Caodaism believes in karma and samara, its consequence. The Caodaists frankly declare to bring nothing new on that point. All volition, thought, word, or act is a cause that bears in it its effect. The cause is rigorously bound to its effects, which is somehow its transformation, its material interpretation.